stanza where son speaks, when we look at the stanza where son speaks, we can see the frustration and the uh, effect of repetition of the same advices of the father, and because he addresses there as the same old story and the same advices and always been the same. And he also tells that he when he uh, uh, at the childhood period, he listened to his father. It is obvious because children listen and follow the ideas of their parents. But when he enters to the adults period after the teenage or during the teenage, he thinks uh, by his own and he thinks by his own, and he starts to find his own goals and uh, own perspectives. And um, the son tries to explain his opinions, but the father turns away from the son. And when he turns back to the son's side, he again starts his advices, and he starts the same old story. And but even though the father brainwashes the son to be at home and marry a girl and live a regular life, the son is not ready to do that, and he decides to go uh, over the restrictions of the the father. And here the father um, brainwashes the son with only one reason, which is he's not young enough. Um, it is not clear that he's not young enough, but as I talked earlier, it can be the maturity of the son, and the father can be considering um, the considering uh, the life skills and the social life skills of the son, and the skill of tackling the social and racial conflicts. And when we look at the next stanza, there, as it is in the first stanza, it is again the utterances, same utterances which are uttered by the father. And uh, uh, from here we can know the pain and the frustration of the son because of the repeating utterances of the father. Here we even here the readers uh, the readers are also frustrated, so we can feel the heavy frustration of the son through these lines. And uh, he again, as it is in the first stanza, he is also emphasizes uh, um, emphasizes the maturity of the son, which is not enough in the perspective of the father. Uh, and he seems to have limited his when we look at the father's childhood, he seems to have limited his desires and his likes uh, according to their father or someone, or according to his attitudes. But all the generation won't be the same. The father is comparing the childhood of himself to the childhood of the his son, but they won't be same in any times. As the time passes by, the generational feelings, the feelings and the revolutionary feelings uh, might appear, will appear, and the perspectives of the people will change. So the father should not compare his childhood to his son's childhood, but he is doing that in his every utterances, uh, and he followed the traditional lifestyles as his father and as his ancestors followed, which is marrying a girl and settling down. But his son is not ready to do it, and he has found his own way to burst out uh, from the walls of uh, the burst out from the walls of restrictions which are created by his father. And here, uh, the father is mentioned as an father can be taken as a negative character, where the positive character, who is the son, is restricted. And when we look at the next stanza, the son uh, explains his worries and explains his burdens, which are done by the decisions and by the utterances of the father. And he mentions that he have cried, and he has been keeping all the things that he knew inside. And the diction, all the things, means the ideas and the impulsive uh, and the radical ideas of the son, which are restricted uh, by the father. And he also mentions that if they were right, I'd agree, but it's them, not me. Here, it's them, not me. That utterance means that the son emphasizes that the father should not judge the son according to his failures, and he has to uh, judge his son with his potentials and with his talents and with his um, positive sense of mind. But his father is not doing that, and he is emphasizing the failures of the son. And uh, here, uh, here throughout the poem, the son tries to emphasize his perspectives and his own ideas, but the father doesn't seem to understand him. So the son um, vehemently makes the decision to go away and find a path to opening of a new life. When we look at the themes of the poem, we can see the main theme as the generation gap. Here, the representative of there are two generation, younger and older generation. The representative of the younger generation is the son, and the representative of the older generation is the father. And here, throughout the poem, the generation gap is heavily illustrated, because the father judges and brainwashes his son according to his perspectives and his ideas, which is changed in the son's time. And uh, he emphasizes the ideas like marrying and living a regular life, which are followed in his period. But in the younger generation period, the son uh, young in the younger generation, the teenagers and the children are more impulsive and radical than the older generation, and he's not ready to follow the rules and follow the regularities of the father, which is like marrying, like living a regular life. He's he has chosen the path of um revolution, uh, revolution and the other things uh, which inspire and push him to live the life which uh, he desires, um and he the far and in that time the father uh, um, could be father also might have been as an impulsive boy in his period, but he had been restricted. He might have been restricted by his parents or others. So in that father in his adult period, he might have. He might have understood the wrong idea of life and the regularities of the life. But in the new generation, the children and the teenagers who think very critical, radical, and who are very imaginative are are not ready to understand the regular ideas of the old generation. Here, the generation gap is um, illustrated, and when we look at the another theme, and we can we can mainly see the theme of the ideological conflict of the father and son. Here, as in accordance to the generation gap, it is the ideological conflict between the son and the father uh, is also depicted through the full poem, and that the ideology of the father and the ideology of the son are extremely different, and two different ideologies created conflict between those two, and the father thinks that his ideology is the perfect and the good one, and the son thinks that his ideology is perfect and a good one. But we can see that the father's ideology can be good in his period, but in the younger generation, the son's ideology are the perfect one for the radical and impulsive community of his friends and impulsive community of the adults and the teenagers, and uh, and and the father and the father's ideologies are like the regular things, but the son's ideologies are the uh, imaginative and the revolutionary things. And the Cat Stevens has written this poem about as I mentioned earlier. This poem is written illustrating a boy who desires to join the Russian Revolution, but he is restricted by his father, and here the his this general context illustrates the need of uh, the understanding need of the understanding fathers of the children, and the Cat Stevens emphasizes the idea of that the parents should understand the ideas and should listen to the ideologies of their children, and uh, they should not consider their all the ideas are perfect. And but I won't say that the children that the parents ideas are all the ideas are not are incorrect, but they should not think that they are all of their decisions are perfect, and they should consider the ideas and consider the emotions of the children. And Cat Stevens has perfectly done this in his poem. Thank you for hearing.